help women save lives and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. When she just came out, she told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. So we had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I am Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. And welcome to the new studio. Yet another reason to watch the podcast on YouTube if you have not made the switch. I know for some reason people don't want to see us, so they do audio only, but switch over to YouTube a little bit and check out our new and improved studio. We will continue to do little tweaks and adjustments to it, but for the most part, this is it. So we are very excited. Like teens going to the prom. Dating is the topic of this extremely controversial and provocative episode of the 40 Days for Life podcast. And joining me as a co-host is somebody who is extremely provocative and divisive, and that is the new and improved and unbelievably handsome Steve Carlin.
I prefer to use the word polarizing.
Look at that beard. You look amazing.
Thank you. I know.
Congratulations on all your success. You smell terrific. Quote the great Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. So how did this occur? It's real. We can confirm.
To the best of our knowledge, yes. I got lazy for a few days about shaving, and then my wife Laura was like, "Oh, I like that." So the only reason I've really done anything in life, like
generated from sloth.
Yes, yeah.
Out of your pool of sloth came your wonderful beard. We had a Zoom or something, and I was like, "Holy cow!" It kind of popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was our weekly team call in which you said that my beard inspires you to, quote, do this work.
I had a great work week. The first week that you had that beard, I just woke up in the morning just full of energy to serve the unborn. And we also have the beautiful Ramona Trevino here.
Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. We won't say anything provocative about you. Okay, so this is a fun topic. And I think somebody actually requested this because we've gotten questions on this. We're going to cover dating, good dating, bad dating. Is dating good at all? When should you start dating? This is going to be all over the map because people have different views on different things. And we have teenagers. You have a teenage son. I have a teenage son. I have 2 teenage daughters. I have a freshman in college. So we're going to get into dating. This is not advice. We're just going to have a discussion, and the listeners.
We're just asking questions here.
We're just asking questions, okay? And
I'm not saying the world is flat. I'm just asking questions.
I'm just, you've been to the end of the world? Yeah, so we are going to get into this. So I have a funny dating story. So as you know, I discerned the priesthood all through high school. So I had a couple of girlfriends, but my most serious girlfriend, it lasted like a whole summer, and I ended up breaking up with her because I was like, hey, I'm getting really serious about the priesthood. But I always wanted to go to the dances, so I would take girls that were like my good friends, where we knew it wasn't going to be like a thing. And the other reason that I liked going to all the proms and our homecoming dances, we had another big dance in Tyler that I often got to go to, the Symphonettes. But I worked in a tuxedo shop. So my first job was I was a grocery bag boy at Brookshire's, a great place, God-fearing company. So I took the groceries out of the local store manager, okay, of the tuxedo shop, and she hired me. Okay. And then she got fired like a week later. But I was working at the tux shop, and you get whatever tux you want. Top hat, cane. I had it all for all the dances. I had an all white tux one year. It was awesome.
You did the top hat and the cane?
Oh, for sure. So one of the years that I did the top hat was as the fall of my junior year, and I didn't have a date, but I wanted to take somebody, but I didn't want it to be like a thing. So my buddy is like, hey, I'll set you up with one of my friends. She goes to Robert E. Lee. That was the public school.
Oh, still? Does it still have that name?
It's now Tyler High or something stupid. I don't know. So because Robert E. Lee, he didn't exist anymore. But so she went to Lee. And he's like, no, she's cool. She's easygoing and all that. And, so this is a blind date. Only blind date I've ever been on. And so I show up and I'm full blown, all white, top hat, tux, everything. Her house is massive. Okay. I don't know the family. I don't know anything about these people. And her parents enthusiastically opened the door. Like, welcome. And I think my friend told them, hey, this guy's like a goody two shoes. And so, he's going to pick her up early, drop her off early. She's safe. So I got the impression from him she had dated a bunch of dirtbags. So they like clung to me. Like I felt like I was going to marry this girl. And it was awkward because when she came out, she was drop dead gorgeous. And all I'm doing is sitting there in like an all white tuxedo. She probably thinks I'm a lunatic. So it was so weird because we're taking a picture in her parents' house. And the dad is like, I think y'all are going to date a while. Heck, you could get married. Wouldn't these pictures be funny then? And I'm like, this is not comfortable for me. Like it was super, super funny. And I always think of that because that was the only blind date. I hadn't really dated a girl. Mary Elise is far more attractive than this girl was, but at the time I hadn't started dating her yet.
Was there a second date?
No. This was an arrangement, and she was super sweet and normal, and she ended up, I think running off with.
Was it a mercy date, Sean?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. If she remembers this at all, she's telling the story of I took this.
He had a cane.
Dork. He had a cane.
Did you have the Monopoly guy monocle?
I did, but I only wore that on Halloween.
Okay.
With the tux, because you got free tuxes, and in there something would happen.
Necktie or bow tie?
Bow tie. I'm a traditionalist, but in the 90s there was this thing with the neckties. That's kind of when that started. But you could do the ivory jacket. I probably had 5 or 6 tuxedos in high school, and the problem is my senior year I lost 100 pounds, and so none of them fit. So I ended up giving them away to Goodwill because I didn't know anybody. But I had tails,
Cummerbund.
Oh yeah, and I do that now. I have a tux now because there's enough events to where I ended up just buying a tux. But I'm a cummerbund suspenders guy.
Did you have more tuxedos than tuxedo-worthy events when you were in high school?
Yes.
Because it seems like I can't think of a scenario other than prom in which I needed a tuxedo. And you had 5 or 6.
I had, yeah. I had 5 regular tuxedos and I had 1 tails.
Nice.
Did you wear them all?
Yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to wear them all?
Yes.
Yeah, where did you take them?
That's what we're
You're going to church.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Where did you go, Sean?
I figured it out with Halloween, but the dances. I mean, I went to 4 formals a year. And so it was just, the reason it was odd is because when you think of a blind date, that's what everybody thinks of is what does the person look like? And I guess I just thought she was just going to be a normal looking girl. I hope that doesn't sound bad, but I was like, oh no, she's gorgeous. I gotta be on. I gotta focus, get my A game. But her parents made it so uncomfortable. They were just smiling at me and I don't know. It was just
kind of creepy.
It was creepy. Her brother was in town from college. They're like, come meet Jeffrey, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm probably never seeing y'all ever again. This is not really.
I'm just trying to wear my tux, man.
I know. I'm here for the clothes. Yeah, it was really, really fun. Did you ever do a blind date?
No, never. I kind of regret that now. It sounds awesome.
Well, it worked out for me, and it was just kind of one of those. All right, great. And at the time, I'm like gonna go to seminary, so I'm like, I'm gonna keep this picture and like show it off to the guys.
Yeah. You triggered a memory for me. I just actually remembered that I have been on a blind date.
All right.
I had
spill the tea.
I've forgotten all about it because I'm so happily married that I just
there we go.
didn't remember it. But yeah, I was in my early 20s, so it was before I met my husband. I wasn't a teen, but I was too busy being a teen mom to go on dates. Yeah, I ended up going on a blind date, and it was a double date, and we went to sing karaoke, and it was fun. But
that sounds like a lot
that's
of fun.
all I remember. I don't even remember what the guy looked like.
That kind of
And I was sober. I was completely sober.
He was wearing tails and a top hat.
That's right.
Turns out you guys have known
That's
each other
why I
longer than
don't
we thought.
remember him, Steve, because he wasn't wearing tails.
My shoes were also black and white patent leather. I'm telling you, that was a fun thing. The only problem with the tuxedo shop is that your manager was always getting fired for like dealing drugs or something, and I'd be like, "But drugs are illegal." And I'm like, I was the most naive kid, but you make like $9 or $10 an hour, and then you get 25% commission of weddings.
Oh wow!
Somebody comes in there 10 tuxes. That's like $1,200.
And this is 25 years ago, so.
Yeah, but it was $100 a tux for sure. I always got them. At least that was my goal. Is even if they pick out the cheap tux, you'd upsell them to stuff they don't really need, and end up like at $100. But we had a lot of Western weddings. They do the Wranglers and the tails, and that was cool. But yeah, so I made I had money to date. I just didn't date a whole lot.
I set up in high school what I called my dating 401k fund. So I just put a little money into my pool every time I didn't have a girlfriend, which was most of the time.
Is it just me, or do I have a big savings account? What does that say? That's hilarious. Did you have a high school girlfriend?
I had some, but
How long were these relationships lasting?
I'll put it this way. I wasn't very good at dating, but I was awesome at breaking up.
I wasn't good at getting a girlfriend. I was good at finding a wife.
Yes. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So, and then, I mean, besides that one like dance, I was taking my friends or whatever, which was always fun. And we'd go in groups. And my senior year, my best friend's dad rented a limo. And he had the limo go out. And I'm very close to their family. And so, and they listen to the podcast, but he has this limo take us to this cool golf course, and he's paying for our dinner. Okay. And we all have our dates and everything. There's like 10 of us. It's like my closest friends and their dates. Super fun. And all the girls were friends. It was a blast. And he said, all right, y'all are obviously, not 21, but other than that, you can order anything from the menu.
As a matter of fact, I will get that béarnaise sauce.
Absolutely. So, anything from the menu. Well, halfway through dinner, I look up and I see the bar. And next to the bar is a humidor.
Ooh.
Exactly, my friend. So, I go up to the bar and I get a Monte Cristo cigar. And God bless. Like, we're ruining this country. There was a huge section in the bar where you could smoke inside, right? So this is gone now in America. We've destroyed this country. And so I light the cigar, and I was the oldest in my class. So I'd like just turned 19. Don't write in and say that I was smoking underage. Okay. So I'm 19, I'm smoking the cigar, and I go over to my friend's table. Like his parents were sitting like in this section. And he looks up and he goes, "Where'd you get that cigar?" And I said, "They have a humidor." He goes, "Did you go up to the bar and order a cigar and put it on my tab?" I said, "Yeah." And he looks at me and goes, I just like bust out laughing. Like he couldn't believe it. He just sat there and he had a great laugh, but he just died laughing in my face. And he was like, the way I answered it, I guess. I was like, you said we could order whatever we want. Like, and he's laughing. So that's definitely my best. That was my senior prom. That was a great time.
Yeah, it's all worth it.
It's all worth it. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know how we got off on that. Okay. Here's the deal. It is prom season right now. I have a senior. She just had her prom last Saturday. And she went with a boy who we love and love the parents. So this question, because this gets tossed around and dating has changed and dating has evaporated. I think I put into the heart of the matter the stats, and that was back in 2020 of just those pre-COVID. Kids would not go on dates, and these professors were doing these projects where you have to take somebody out on a date and you cannot take them to a movie. Like you have to go and talk to them. It can be coffee, it can be a formal dining thing, it can be something. But you will have a conversation and report back. And there's this like Harvard study of all these professors doing this because nobody was dating, nobody knew how to talk to the opposite sex. And it kind of begs the question, is there a Christian perspective on dating? Now, I do think that there is a saturated, or I guess healthy amount of Christian chastity speakers, theology of the body, all that kind of stuff. But I know people and they would never allow their kids to date. And I think the question has to be, what is a date?
What is a date?
Because a date means promiscuity to most people. If you say my kids are dating, they're like, oh, they're having sex before marriage.
Right.
Which is such a negative outlook on young people. It really is. It's just like, but I didn't do that, when I was in high school. So I think based on somebody's experience, it can be really, really good, really, really bad. There's definitely not a one size fits all.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I know I've seen kind of two approaches which tend to be the poles. Like it's binary, not a spectrum. And in some cases, you've got the parents who kind of take the permissive position, which is sort of like, let them date their kids, let them have fun. They need to make their own mistakes. They need to learn from their own mistakes. And then you've got kind of the more strict approach, which is no dating until you're 18 or no dating until you're done with high school or maybe even later. And the idea is like, well, kids, they lack the maturity. They can't make good decisions. They're not ready to get married right now, so they don't belong dating either. You should wait until you're ready to marry before you're dating. And I don't agree with that position either. I think there's kind of a middle ground where dating probably shouldn't look the same at 17 as it does at 21, but I don't know that means that suddenly there's this on-off switch where suddenly you hit 18 or 21 or 20. I don't know what the magic age is, but I don't know that I think it makes a lot of sense to suddenly you just flip the switch and now it's okay.
Well, and I think too, like you said, let's define what is dating. I know that has kind of changed throughout the years. In my mind, back when I was, in high school, dating meant actually going out on a date, like picking someone up, taking them out, and now
doing something.
Yeah, doing something. And now it just seems like, oh, we're dating.
We're talking.
We're talking. We went from talking to dating.
Dating today is what talking used to be.
Yes.
Are you dating Julie? No, we're just talking. And now the talking with the internet and they're on the phones all the time, but there is a little bit of get off my yard, like old man.
And
not even talking, and then texting.
Too, if you're dating or are you actually in a relationship with this person, I think that's also needs to be defined sometimes is.
The DTR?
What
define the relationship?
I haven't heard of that, Steve.
Heather taught me about it when we were talking about this podcast.
Heather's in with the youth.
The DTR.
Define the relationship.
Define the relationship. Okay, yeah.
By the way, update on a previous podcast. I was informed over the Easter break that tight has made a comeback.
Oh,
tight. Like that's tight. It's
sweet.
Sweet. It's making a comeback.
Excellent.
Both confirmed by my college daughter and my high school son and my high school daughter. That's 3 people.
It left in its back. The word cool has just always stays in season.
cool, but now cold. We've talked about that too. Like that's like that guy's Ferrari is cold.
And now that's out.
No, that's still in.
It's still in?
Cold is still a thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sick. That dude is
Sweet.
far out. Bring back
Rad.
Bring
It's
back,
rad.
I bet you were a rad guy. That's rad, Dad. It's a race car.
Bogus, man.
Yeah. So bogus. You were actually making a good point. But
I was?
But yeah, the dating and the talking. And look, we had 2 girls off the bat, right? So they're 10 and a half months apart, Irish twins. I immediately remember thinking, I'm going to be that guy that you see like at church who has like 8 daughters, right? I'm just going to have all these girls. And immediately when they were born, I was like, high school will be awful. Boys are evil, like the full reputation. And then I can't tell you how fun it was to have high school daughters. And I'll have some for a long time because the little girls get older. But it was so fun. And I'm a complete hypocrite on this because I was like, you can't date until you're 18. And I found myself naturally, because of the caliber of kids. Number one, there was you like boys. That's a good thing. Just check that box. Normal for girls to like boys and boys to like girls. But I think each kid is different. Their maturity is different. And we wouldn't let them go on a date with like just the boyfriend because they got boyfriends and they weren't like, it just meant that they were talking. Like they didn't do anything together. And then when they were old enough to drive, I got rid of my 18-year-old rule that you have to be 18 to like go on a date after they were together for a while. And we know their parents, we know the boys, they're good kids. Our kids are good kids. And of course, all that can sound very naive, but it's true. It's true. They're like good young men. Who knows? They're still together. Both my daughters have boyfriends, but they could break up tomorrow or whatever. But that experience, whether they marry these guys or not, that experience is valuable. And that's what you're saying, just socially and learning, it's just another person in your life that you care about, that you sacrifice for, that you learn to deal with or whatever, and who can hurt you, who can make you feel good, who can hurt you, and just growing up and realizing like the human relationship part, because it is.
I kind of put it this way. My son just turned 18, and we've encouraged him to date, and he's done a little bit of it, which is great. And this is sort of controversial. I think in my circle, I'm the minority position. I think most of my kids' peers' parents are like no dating until 18. And so we're kind of the liberals, which is wild. I'm never the liberal on anything, but on this one, apparently I am. But I think it's safer in a sense because when it begins and my son is under our roof, like I can be there as a dad to talk about like the chastity issues and the temptation issues and those sorts of things. And then my wife is able to like teach him how to be a gentleman.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when you kind of push it off and then suddenly it's like, all right, bam, you're at college, green light. You don't know how to act. You're uncomfortable. You don't know how to look a girl in the eye, how to hold a girl's hand, ask a girl to dance, all of those sorts of things. And then I think we see, the way I put it, have you ever heard that military phrase that like the generals are fighting the last war? Like, okay, the lessons that we learned in World War II don't necessarily apply to Vietnam, which then didn't apply to the Gulf War and so on and so forth. And I think that our generation, perhaps, maybe it was promiscuity that was the big fight or struggle, or even if not, it's just maybe it's like, oh gosh, somebody's mom was 17 and she slept with a guy and she regrets it and there was pain. Whatever the case might be, whatever level of the relationship getting too physical too fast that there was, I don't know that that's the same war that we're fighting today. Today, kids are lonely. They're isolated. They're behind screens. They had the COVID experience. And so I'm not saying we need to be naive and just assume that, okay, free for all. But I do think it's healthy for our kids to get a little bit of experience of the basics. Like my son doesn't need to cook dinner every night, but I still teach him how to cook so that he's got some skills. And when it's time for him to be on his own, he's not starting from scratch.
This is a really good point that you've made, and it's even better with the beard. Because
that's why I grew it for credibility purposes.
Because you like counseled me one day because we were driving, and this was like 2 years ago or something, and I think both my oldest girls had a boyfriend. And you were like, how is that and all that? And I said to you out loud, I said, I don't know why I don't have a problem with it. I said, I guess because I know the kids. I know the kids' parents. And we love the families. And, you know, our daughters have given us every sign that they're responsible and they're not stupid. And I said, but I'm just shocked that I'm okay with it. If I would have like talked to myself 12 years ago or something, I'd have been like, no, I'm going to be on the porch with a shotgun, which I've done that. It's kind of fun. But they just laugh. But when you said to me, the reason it's easy for you now is because you just didn't realize times have changed. And like, it's not 1998. 1998, you're not going out with anybody.
Right.
It's just not happening. But it is different. There is a loneliness thing, which my kids aren't lonely, but there was also just the natural, I don't know, there's the risk, and I've heard older parents tell us this, of just I just couldn't do anything until I was 18. And boy, did I get to work, you know, and they are out of the house, and there is this kind of, you know, they're legal now. They don't have to listen to you. They're not living with you. You can't instruct them on certain stuff. And I like that. But I think there is the factor of you haven't dated at all. Doesn't mean you have to have a girlfriend for 3 years. But if you haven't been socially in any kind of dating session, it's going to be a rough go in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to know certain things, and you want to get, I guess, like that pressure too of like, you got to open the door for her. You got to talk to her parents. You got to do all this. You got to pay for dinner. You know, it can be you got to ask her out. Which is terrifying.
And you've got girls. I've got my teen is a boy. And so there's like the prom conversation, like where Laura's like, okay, do you have the corsage? And Peter's like, what's that, right?
So is that the flower thing?
Exactly. So I think it's really helpful to have kind of a structured environment that can help you kind of get your bearings a little bit, get your legs under you.
Well, and I think I would almost argue that times really haven't changed. I guess it depends on what we're referring to when we talk about times have changed, because I think for me, you know, having kids that range from 30 to age 6. Sorry, 7. Sorry, 7. She just had a birthday. She just had a birthday. I've kind of, and my own experience, you know, like growing up in the 90s, being a teen mom, which teen pregnancy was a big thing in the 90s, right? So
what class are you in?
I was 96.
You're class of 96, okay.
Yeah. So teen pregnancy was a big deal in the 90s. And I would argue that nothing has changed. Like the human heart longs to be in a relationship with someone. And I think that's just what I've seen throughout the years, is that I think that's just natural for our teens to want to date, to want to be in a relationship.
And you can handle that rightly, and you can handle that
exactly. And I've already had the opportunity to mess it up. You know what I mean? I have a 30-year-old daughter, so I've already been there, done that. And now our oldest son is 18, so he has a girlfriend. And
do you like the girl?
I do. Yeah, she's cute. She's cute.
I think what has changed, I agree with what you're saying, Ramona.
She's cute.
Oh, did that cut you off?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
I think what has changed is that the generation of kids today is more safety obsessed than anything that we have seen before. And so whereas like teenagers, I think for a long time had a reputation of being reckless. They're going to crash the car. They're going to drink. They're going to smoke. They're going to be... Now, like... I had a conversation, I think my son Peter, like he just turned 16. He was a sophomore in high school. It's Friday night, and he's at home watching Hogan's Heroes reruns. I'm like, take the keys. Get in a mild amount of trouble. Like
I don't know how to say this. You're a dork.
Yeah. Like, if I get a call from the police that you were toilet papering someone's house, you will get a high five when you get home. Like, don't drink and drive. Don't there's a lot of things you can't do, but like go out and do something. And I think there's sort of that safety thing. We had it with the COVID thing, to bring that up again. But I think there's a safety in terms of you've got, in many cases, our generation so concerned about our kids reliving the experiences that we saw our peers make as teenagers. And we can't let that happen, so we need to hermetically seal them off from any risk of making a bad decision. And then, as you said, Sean, there's relationship is risk.
Yeah.
And so you have the risk of maybe you like someone and it's unreciprocated and then your heart hurts. And I think that we've got this generation that has so sealed itself off to the possibility of pain that we've kind of destroyed their humanity in a little bit of a sense.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of, I know for us, we just have the do's and don'ts list of if you're going to date so-and-so, you're going to do this. My daughter's boyfriends have asked me permission to date, or is it okay if we go do this? Is it okay if we go to this restaurant? Just little stuff like traffic and what I'm comfortable with, which is great that they do that. But I think one thing that I have always wanted that we have kind of focused on having girls is that, yes, you can have a boyfriend, as long as he's not a total loser. And they've picked good guys. But also, I think our daughters want what we have as a married couple. And they get that, like, we have fun. And we had fun when we were dating. And we get along. And it's joyful. And it's, we didn't have sex before marriage. And we made a point that, like, we want to give this relationship a chance in case we are called to be married. And I'm not saying that's how my daughters are approaching their high school boyfriends. But it is like a seriousness. They'll pray on the phone together. They'll, like, say the rosary on the phone together. But it was important to me, despite all that, that they have friends who are girls. Mm-hmm. So it's not just you and a boyfriend your whole high school life. Because then you break up and you're like, I don't have any friends. Everything I did was with my boyfriend. And that
becomes your identity.
It becomes your identity. And you just don't want to be with your boyfriend all the time, And so you have a group of friends. And our girls did that. That was really, really good. And they each had a super best friend who was a girl. And then they had like their group of friends. And they were also involved in a million activities at school.
Which is extremely important.
Yeah.
You don't want the boyfriend to become their number one priority in their
exactly.
life. Yeah.
And that can be the problem. And neither one of them are going to the same college as the boy now. And so it wasn't, and even they talked about that because I'm like, Mary Lisa could have gone to the communist China and I would have followed her like in college, And so, but they were just like, we didn't want to make that decision based on that. Wanted to make it based on our career paths and all that, like all these mature answers. And we didn't have that. Mary Lisa and I went to A&M and I started dating her the summer before my freshman year. And, that was it.
Which really says a lot about their emotional maturity.
Yeah.
That they're not going to follow their boyfriend wherever he's going. They're going to focus on what they want, what their future entails, right?
Yeah.
And that if it works, then it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's okay.
Yeah. And now
the world.
We have a freshman. So far it's working, and granted, they're all like 19, 18 years old, so they could break up tomorrow. But it's one of those, I do think that the maturity level of the child matters. Mm-hmm. And their need for attention or that kind of thing. I think there's such a common sense approach of it. And that's why I changed on it. I mean, but 10 years ago, I was like, no, my daughters aren't dating until they're 18 and all that. And that wouldn't have been the right thing, I think, for us.
There's different levels of seriousness too, right? Like going out to dinner or something to that effect is wholly different from where we're kind of talking about like the exclusivity or the presumption of long-term exclusivity. Like there's an appropriate time and place. And I don't know that you can put in paper or on paper in writing, here are the guidelines. You could have a rule book that's 100 pages long, but there's common sense has to apply here, right? And we kind of have a rule, like there's no expectation of privacy. Like if you're out in public at a restaurant together, great. You're not going to sit in the dark in the basement and watch a movie together. Like those are some common sense lines.
You're never alone. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the thing. And the other thing is, and I've appreciated this, it's something I didn't think about when I was 30 years old, which is I like all the group dating, and I don't want my girls out with a bunch of other girls. I want guys with them. And they've got some big dudes that they're friends with. And I'm like, I'll ask. I'll be like, are they going with you? Like, I want guys to be with y'all. Just if y'all go to the movie or whatever. And I do think that just the safety factor, it does come into play. Whereas there's just a difference between 4 high school girls going to a movie and 8 high school kids, 4 of whom are dudes, or 3 are dudes. It just, that's another factor that I don't think people really think about. And again, if you just do the cutoff and you're like, nope, you're under my roof, you're not dating, and you're not having a boyfriend, you try to surprise, number one, then you may have to deal with a secret boyfriend, which would terrify me even more. Yep. And then you're in like the Lifetime after school special where the dad doesn't understand true love and all that garbage. And so, but it just becomes like a free-for-all. And I had friends like that. And I was a goody-goody. I looking back, I had fun in high school. I had fun in college. That was a blast. I wasn't like high school was so stupid. I had a really good time, and the girls weren't lining up, but it was, I don't know, it was just like a healthy group of friends. And I think that you can have that. And sometimes we get so negative because of the horror stories that we just like write this stuff off. And I'm like, I don't think I'm sending my kid to college when they've never dated. Number one, they're not knowing what in the world they're doing, especially the guys. But also, I don't know. It's just a lot to cover in those high school years that you can get out of the way while they live with you.
We've got friends and acquaintances that they don't just say not even 18, but they'll say not until you're ready to get married. And if you're going to college, I think that presumes like 22 minimum. So then what? Then I think in practice, like that sounds good. Like you can make, I think, a rational sounding case. If you're not ready to get married, you shouldn't date. But I think when you kind of watch how that plays out, I have observed is a lot of people who are cut off, they're sealed off from dating until they're 18, 22, whatever. And then they're 25 and they're 30 and they're 35 and they haven't dated yet. And we have, in the Catholic Church, we talk a lot about a vocations crisis. We need more priests. We need more nuns. We need more families too. And to have a family, you have to get married, and to get married, you have to date. And I think we're not doing kids a service if we just kind of throw them out into the wild at age 18 or 22 and hope that they swim and not sink.
Well, and I think dating also helps figure out what kind of person you want to marry. And what is your type, And I don't think you know that at 18 or 20, but you certainly don't know it if you've never dated or never been on a date. And I still think there's a big social thing here. Like, I loved it. I loved getting the tuxedo. I love shining the shoes. I love, all that stuff. The dinner plans. Like, I love that now. Mary Lisa and I go on dates, and I love planning dates. So, but let's say you don't, let's say that terrifies you. Well, you need to overcome that, in little steps in a relationship that's probably not going to work out to be a whole lot. It's not like you got a lot of skin in the game, but you can at least get the social part. Yeah. And meeting somebody else's father, shaking their hand. I remember I took this girl to homecoming one time, and she was a good friend. We just went as friends. And I think I wanted her to be my girlfriend, but she wasn't interested. And so, but I know
the feeling.
So I go, and I was so scared, I guess, to like, her mom loved me. Her mom was like real bubbly, but I had never really met her dad. So I was kind of nervous about meeting her dad. And when I got there, I realized, oh, he's terrified of what's happening right now. Like that his daughter is going on a date with me. And I was driving us to a restaurant where we were meeting other couples for like our homecoming dance. And so he was like nervous shaking my hand. And it was like a reverse role. Like I felt bad for this guy because I'm like, this is his daughter. Like this is probably, and it's his oldest child. So it's like probably my little girl's old enough, And so it was just funny. I remember like, and his wife hits him and says, say something to Sean. And he's like, I like your haircut, son. I was like, oh, thank you. I like yours too. It was the same haircut that we had. And he's like she hit him because the mom.
How about them cowboys?
Yeah, it was. Oh, you could say that. Yeah. How about them cowboys? But her mom was kind of like our moms. Like she was like real loud and direct and everything. But she hit her husband and was like, say something to Sean. And I was like, I can hear you. So. But I was scared. I picked up this other girl, and I knew her dad was a psychopath, and I was terrified. I was terrified to go in the house. But, those situations are so good, particularly for young men, because it's also like this. It's not free. You don't text some girl and then just hook up with her. And that's the bad part of today's culture.
Yeah.
No, you're meeting humans. You're talking to her. You're shaking the dad's hand. You're acknowledging she comes from a family. You're going to, be responsible. You're not going to drink and drive. It just kind of raises the bar. And I think, too, it's part of manhood from the male perspective. And I think that to deprive your child of that is kind of letting them wuss out.
I also think along those lines that when dating becomes some sort of forbidden fruit, the kids take it too seriously. And so like asking someone out becomes a life or death consequence.
Yeah.
I've encouraged Peter. It's like, if you're interested, just ask her out. If she says no, who cares? Doesn't matter. I think when you kind of like put it on a pedestal, are you ready? You have to be ready. You have to be this mature. You have to this many years old. I think there's a real risk that every little step along the way becomes life and death, and it can't just be like, yeah, we saw Top Gun last night.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think that there's this fear from parents because of the culture that we live in. Like you said, the hookup culture that we live in. There's this fear that dating equates to hooking up.
Yeah. Dating is sex.
That's all it is, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity for us as parents who want to instill the virtue of chastity in our children and get them to understand that, what dating is really about, getting to know somebody, seeing the person with dignity, treating them with respect, experiencing a good time together, having good conversation, figuring out what someone likes, whether you have something in common, and then that's it. It's not about hooking up. And so I think that we need more of this. Not less of it.
Yeah, we don't need people to run from this. Like
exactly.
We need to get it back to its, its roots and its dignity.
We've got a little bit of a disconnect. We're all Catholic, and I think in the Catholic world, the last 20 years, we've grown leaps and bounds in preparing teens for things like chastity or staying away from pornography. And it's led to this very odd circumstance where we're training 15-year-old girls to track their cycles and then saying, but you can't date for another decade.
That's the NFP. Yeah, it is. That's a good point, Steve. Boy, this beard is doing wonderful. It is.
I don't always drink beer.
That's right. What I do.
I prefer Dos Equis.
Next time we see it, it'll be like silver.
Yes.
From all the wisdom.
He'll have a handkerchief around his neck.
I'm going Orthodox priest.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
Laura has said no to that, but she said no to a lot of things.
I'm with Laura on this.
Here's my unsolicited observation that I don't know if you could do like the Orthodox priest because it's thick. And I think what you'll like if you didn't shave for like 3 weeks, you'd be full blown like Amish. Like remember the head Amish guy in Witness with Harrison Ford? His was gray. And
I shun fancy things like electricity.
Yes, and so that's I don't think you would make it to the Orthodox beard because I think you'd get stuck in Amish land.
What does that mean?
The way your beard is growing, it's gonna be like
not bushy enough?
Tight.
Oh,
It's not you. You're not, like the Orthodox thing is kind of there's a lot going on.
There's
it's kind
a
of stringy.
lot of freedom.
Yeah, a lot of freedom. Yours is like packed in there like a good solid Amish beard.
Yeah, I like that. I also like because this is where all my wisdom is coming from in this episode. A lot of wisdom coming from me.
Dating wisdom from the Amish guy.
Yeah. I've got like some rando gray hairs here, but I got like on the chin here, there's like a little patch. It makes me feel very established.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's like we interrupted you reading Crime and Punishment. So that we could record this podcast.
So wise. I'm like a miniature Buddha covered in fur.
What's that from?
Anchorman.
Okay.
Baxter the dog.
Baxter the dog. Okay, there we go.
You say I don't watch good movies.
That's right. Great date movie. Anchorman. Yeah, we've lost the crowd now. Oh, mercy. I do think that that's a problem. And by the way, not dating isn't practicing chastity. Okay, so I mean, you can practice chastity when you're dating. That's the thing. That's when you do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I never understood the like. I'm not going to date. I'm going to be chase. And it's like, wait a second.
It's like praying for patience, and then God gives you all these things that you have to be patient about.
Yeah. But it's that was the thing about, when I was discerning the priesthood, older people who may or may not be boomers. I think I've said this on the podcast. They're like, but you're never going to have sex. Like, I don't know what celibacy is. Like, no, I thought I would have sex twice a week. What are you talking about? It's like, I know that. It's for the sake of the kingdom, Matthew 19. Like, I'm choosing this. Like, I understand that. And they're like, but you're never going to have sex. It's almost like they worshiped it, Steve. So I was sitting there and I was like, I came up with the same response. I'm like, but I'm not having sex in my life now. Like, nothing's going to change. It would be different maybe if I went out and I slept with 30 people and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to be a priest. That would be hard, but people do that. But like, I was like, I don't have sex now. Yeah, but you'll never have it. But I'm just be continuing my life now, and I like my life now. It was just one of those things. And that's a lot of people don't understand about the priesthood is it's not the vow of celibacy. It's the vow of obedience. You'd be 58 years old.
That's what a lot of people don't understand in general, even with married couples.
Married couples.
That there is this thing called abstinence even within your marriage.
And chastity. Yeah. Your wife is not some sex slave.
Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes that gets torn up into it. But yeah, being a priest, being 60 years old and being told, pick up everything, you're moving here, you're going to this parish, we're moving you. And you got to do it. I mean, that's hard. Nobody's telling us what to do when we're 60. Nobody tells us what to do when we're like 21. And so it's just, that's the hard part. But I think that the idea of having a chaste relationship, it's not this thing just to be laughed at. And it's beautiful. And I know for our kids and our kids' friends and even us, you don't want to ruin your great relationship. There is built-in motivation. Like, sex could really ruin all this.
I don't know the year span, but it seems to me like there was some sort of thing that happened. I'm not going to say it's boomers. I'm not going to say it's not boomers, but we accepted this lie that teenage rebellion is required to happen and that's the normal state of affairs. And I don't think that it is. And I think in particular, certainly there's people who are not pro-life and they're not following the Lord. Like, yeah, maybe we give different advice to some of those families for the time being. But if you're listening to the podcast dedicated helping you end abortion where you live, you probably have an understanding of who your children are, what they're capable of, what they're ready for, what they're not ready for. And I don't think that we have to accept this idea that our teenagers are just ready at that drop of a hat to go off the rails.
So what about, I think this is a problem for people, and I know people like this. I was a disaster. I was promiscuous. I'm protecting my child from this. And my parents were checked out. So now I'm checked in, which means you're never dating. I think that's a lot of people.
I think so too. I think it's probably the majority who are taking the position that.
I guess I would say that's an overcorrection.
I think so.
Maybe your parents were lousy. They weren't involved. They were checked out, and you suffered because of it. Yeah, if you could just I could have done really whatever I wanted. I had a ton of freedom. I just had, thank God, great influences and great priests in the school, and I was drawn to the priesthood, and I didn't want to mess that up. I couldn't commit a crime. I couldn't go out and sleep around. I was like built-in discipline. Like, I want to do this. I think I'm called to this. And but so everybody's culpable, but if you have the women especially who have that I grew up with and that I have now, like in our little circle of friends, if your dad is involved and you know he cares about you, there is the natural, I just don't want to disappoint dad. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of it. And, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to restrict what your kids can do because you had lousy parents or you blew it.
Yeah, just be a good parent.
Just be a good parent.
Yeah, and I think it makes you more merciful too if you've been there. Like, obviously there's a temptation to overcorrect it, but for me, from my perspective, there was a temptation definitely to go that route, and then I was like, oh, this isn't working. Let me pull this back a little bit. But I think it, like my daughter ended up being, pregnant at, let's see, how old is she now? I don't want to give it away. They're 26, single mom. So here we are fearing that it happens when they're teens.
Right.
It ended up happening to her when she was almost 30. Right. And so, but it makes you more merciful and understanding. And then when you pull that back a little bit and you go, oh, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't overcorrect this. Let me just kind of pull it back and find a healthy balance. Then, you can understand the position that your kids are in because you were in it yourself. And then you try to teach them and instill better choices for them to make better choices than you made. But then you also realize and reflect, well, my children have something that I didn't have, which is good parents, right? Who are together and they're in a healthy relationship. And, so that's the thing is you look back and you reflect and you go, well, wait a second, yes, I had both of my parents, but it wasn't the greatest situation, but we're now correcting that with a good, loving, healthy marriage. So they have that, right? So they see that. And then you just kind of do the best you can and pray.
and communicate.
Yeah, and communicate.
I mean, saying no and explaining the no, saying yes, explaining the yes, what would turn the yes to a no, being responsible and all of that. There's a very practical thing we have not brought up, which is a huge difference in the 1990s, and that's Life 360. Because it's the app.
Oh, yes.
So you can track your kids. That's just a huge part of it. That has been a disaster for me in high school. I don't hope mom doesn't listen to this. But the Life 360 is if they turn it off, you're notified, which my kids never turn it off. It's so funny, which is good. I'm glad they don't. But you can track them. And just safety-wise, they made it to the restaurant. They made it to the prom. They're at now whatever, their friend's house and all that kind of stuff. Our kids have never been allowed to sleep over. I think that's been that annihilates a lot of things. And that's just a rule that we have. Some people don't like it. Some people do. But it also helps geographically where we live. Houston's just so spread out. And, there's like one or two places they're allowed to stay. But yeah, I think that Life 360 is really kind of funny because you just the idea of doing something bad in high school was like my parents don't know where I am right now, and that's impossible. They can turn it off, but then they have to deal with that. That's a big issue, and they can't lose the sacred phone.
We have our parenting strategy has sort of been, I think, amongst our peers, we are among the strictest up to age 12.
Yes,
and
for sure.
I find that many great families that I know, like their kids, like there's no discipline in those early years. It's like mirror opposite. And like the kids, like, I'm like, Laura, can you not have that family over? Because they like climbed up the bookcase and almost tipped it over and killed themselves. And like, that sort of thing. They broke our stuff. Like, oh, well, the kids, they don't know any better. They're 3 years old. And to me, the first like 4 or 5 years of parenting is just kind of like pattern recognition. You do this, you're going to get scolded. You're going to whatever, go to timeout, whatever. And then when they're 6 or 7, whatever age, then they know, and it's not just suddenly, oh, there's rules imposed upon me. I don't know where they came from. But as they hit the teenage years, that's where I go from like the strictest parent to some of the most liberal. And I sat my son down as he was getting his license. I said, you have some exciting times ahead of you. Like there are good times. You're going to have freedom with the car. You're going to be able to work, earn money, do things, hang out with your friends. I said, the extent to which you are responsible, your ability to do things will grow, and to the extent that you let us down, those opportunities are going to shrink. So it's your choice. Don't screw up. And I don't want to be the guy who's got like one kid who's a teenager who's like, by the way, guys, I figured this all out. Like I know, like maybe things go more difficult with subsequent children, but so far, like for me, when I was a teen and now with my teen, like that's been a good and effective policy. Like he hasn't let me down. And I think it's like you say, kids don't want to let dad down. They don't want to let mom down either. And they also have a little skin in the game themselves. Like, hey, I didn't blow it. I made curfew. Guess what? Curfew's a half hour later this week.
But we all have several kids. So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're all different.
This podcast may look different in 10 years.
Yeah.
Different.
Don't do it.
Different personalities.
Don't let them out of the house.
Yeah, different personalities, different temperaments.
We're trying to get my son to date. And we know, but he's doing like the high school's too little. Girls are drama and all this. But my teenage daughters can interview him. It's like a cross-examination. If you were to like a certain type of girl.
How old?
How would she look? He's 16.
Okay.
And he took a girl. We made him take a girl to homecoming just so he had to ask her out. Mm-hmm. It was so funny because he's tough and he's a real mature kid and he's a great kid. And Mary Lisa had to take him, and he was going to ask this girl to a dance. And he's like boys, like they don't talk. With girls, we get everything, full update on the entire school every night. And the boys like, yeah, it's good. He's in the front seat, and she pulls up, and he goes, I'm terrified. I can't do this. And she's like, get out of the car and go ask that girl out. And it was so funny. And he did it. And he's like, okay, I'm really glad I got it over with. But it's so funny, like the differences, because we know he's liked a few girls, but like we would have to hire the DOJ to do an investigation.
Did either of you have the element of the little kids making fun of the older kids?
All the time.
Oh.
It's awesome.
Blast. Total blast.
We just had John Paul as our 12-year-old, and he's talking crap. He's like, oh, I noticed that it's a photo of you two on your phone screen.
Yeah.
I was like, John Paul, Peter went and got the girl. I don't think this is the flex that you think it is to make fun of him for it.
Our generations do both.
Okay.
The older kids make fun of like, ooh, the fifth grade girl. What's the scene look like? To our younger boys, and then Timothy, my 5-year-old, will be like, you have a boyfriend. Like, it's like an insult. The girls are like, I know, I have a boyfriend. And he says it like it's risque.
Like it's a burn.
Yeah, like it's a burn. It's so funny. No, that part is super fun.
We also had a cross-generational element where he was 17. One of John Paul's friends, who's not his girlfriend, but the friend who was a girl, was like, "Oh, Peter looks handsome with his beard. He hadn't shaved, and they had there's three hairs.
3 hairs on there.
Peter looks handsome in his beard." Mom, how much older is Dad than you?
That's great. Oh, that's really great. That's really great. Okay, we're closing this out. All right, the best date of my life, May 22nd, 2001, first date with Mary Lisa. So I know her brothers. We're like all friends. So I go out they lived out in the country, like 50 miles. And I drive up the driveway, go over the cattle guard, and my now moronic brother-in-laws are all in overalls, nothing under the overalls, straw, and they're all holding 12 gauges, like for me to go pick up Mary Lisa. And I've known their family my whole life, and I'm like, I saw y'all yesterday, you morons. Like, it was just so funny, and they had cowboy hats on and all that, like they were being the protective, brothers. And so we go to Bernard's. I went full blown, classy, look, we're gonna have a nice dinner. So we go. I took her to a chapel to pray, which risky. Is at the hospital. So this is the awkward part. But the dinner went so well. Randomly in Tyler, the chapel in the hospital is one of the most beautiful chapels you'll ever see. It's really random, and I knew that, and I knew she would like it. But you pull up to the ER, and it's like, what a psychopath. It's 9:15 on a Friday night. But anyways, so that part was kind of cool and funny now. So then I drive her home, and we just sat in the driveway, standing outside. I took my dad's car, talking for 2 hours. And then it's I got to leave. So I drive home, and it's a long drive, and I'm so pumped. I look, and there's a cop pulling me over. The sirens are behind me, and I was going 92 miles an hour. Oh, my gosh. And the cop came up, and he said, I got to give you a ticket. And I was like, I don't care. I just had the date of my life. And he goes, all right, well, congratulations. I'm still giving you a ticket. Yeah, it was cool.
I was hoping he was going to let you slide, Sean, on that one.
Me too. And then I made the strategic decision to keep that information from my dad, that I got a speeding ticket, but apparently the insurance told him. And I justified not telling him. I didn't lie to him. I just didn't tell him because I paid for my own car insurance all through high school. And so I was like, I don't need to tell him. I don't think he has a way of finding out. And he found out, and he never got mad about anything. And he got really mad about that ticket. I remember thinking, I don't care. It was the first date with Mary Lisa. Like, it doesn't matter. Just put it on the tab.
My first day with Laura, took her out to dinner. It went great. Brought her back to her dorm. And then I went back to my dorm and I watched the Packers beat the Bears on Monday Night Football.
Yes!
Perfect
Excellent.
day. Perfect.
Steve, you think you're going to marry that girl? Shut up. It's 4th and goal.
You got that right.
Oh, my gosh.
This wasn't our first date, but it was kind of a first official date between my husband and me. We went to like Dave & Buster's, I think. And
good.
Yeah, it was a good
place.
one. It was a good one. And the only thing that, well, not the only thing, but what I remember the most is when we sat down for dinner. I've never been shy about anything.
Okay.
And I'm definitely not shy about eating.
Okay.
And so when I finished my food, I looked at him and asked him if he was going to finish his.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And,
That's a real woman.
And he said, "You sure can't put it away."
No, he said that. It was gonna last.
Yes.
If you're saying that, like, you can't. That's like
Yeah, like
10 years
two,
married.
3 dates in.
That's like a 10-year marriage thing
Yeah.
where you say stuff like that. If he's doing that first date,
Yeah, I was like, he's the one.
yeah, this is definitely gonna work.
And the fact that I laughed about it, he probably was like, she's the one.
It took us 3 dates, and Mary Lisa's like, I really like you. I want to keep this going. We just need to talk about something. And I'm like, oh no. And she's like, look, you got to quit tucking in your shirts. Like, it's just Nerdville. And I was like, oh no. Because then I remembered, like, at the first 2 dates, I tucked my shirt in. Because I was, like, still in, like, the seminarian thing going, you know, where you, like, everything's tucked in and belt and loafers and.
I mean, you're wearing the top hat and the cane, so.
No, I said you should have seen me in my tuxes, and
Yeah.
she knew all about the tuxes and all of that. But, like, I mean, I graduated high school, and then we went on a date, like, a week later. It was our first date.
You know, I had a slightly similar experience to what you said. My first day with Laura, we get to the restaurant. And,
Where did you go? Do you remember this?
It was a it was a classy place. It's called Husnus. It was a Mediterranean cuisine, like real nice sit-down place. And they came around and asked, like, what type of salad, and Laura said, I don't eat vegetables. I was like, oh, this is the woman for me.
Really? That's awesome. That's amazing. So I knew the owner of Bernard's. His name is Bernard. His French restaurant is the nicest place in Tyler. One of the nicer ones in Tyler then, anyways. And but I was always in there with like parents or the priests. The priests went in there a lot. And we were just in a lot of scenarios where like our family was taking the priest to this restaurant. And so they knew specifically Father Doyle. And so Bernard came over to me and he goes, because we were just there like a few months before because we got a new bishop. And there was this huge kind of party at Bernard's that these people threw. And so the priests were there and we're all laughing and it was a great night. So that had kind of just happened. So Bernard comes over and he's like, Mr. Carney, you are here. He called me Mr. Carney even though I was like a teenager. Mr. Carney, you're with a woman. And I'm like, Bernard, get the hell out of here. Like, I'm working on something.
Discretion, please.
Yeah, it was just like, he's like, you're with a woman. And Mary Lisa always brings that up, like to this day. It was so funny.
You better comp those onion rings now, buddy.
Yeah, she was like impressed that he came over to the table and then it just died. She's like, you're with a woman? I've never seen that. Oh my gosh, it's too funny. All right, this is good stuff. Please send your comments in if you agree, disagree, if you have suggestions for listeners, for us. Please do that. Please also, most importantly, comment on Steve's beard and just your overall reaction. Let us know if you like the new look and our new studio. Let's get a wide shot here. Where's that camera? Oh, look at this beautiful studio. It's fantastic. So, yeah, we're excited about the studio. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ramona. Go plan a date with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your wife. Plan a date. Go on a date. So important. Get out from our culture and go enjoy doing something, a lot of fun with someone you care about. So please rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time.